Turning now to the concept of preempting alcohol. Now, the coronavirus lockdown introduced us to virtual happy hour, and stress from the pandemic. It sparked a real spike in drinking nationwide. But some people chose to simply stay sober from the very start, believing it the surest way to prevent any potential alcohol problems. And as the year wore on, others began getting on the wagon too.
I would pour myself a glass of wine or beer or a mixed drink, and it was sort of my treat at the end of the day. And I never really thought twice about it because every other mother I knew was doing this.
Lily Marshall is a 39-year-old married mother of two. She's also a travel writer, artist, and educator. A moderate drinker, Lily never thought she had a dependency problem.
And then all of a sudden, I started to see people talking about trying to quit for 21 days. And I suddenly realized that that would be difficult. I began looking into what helps to stop addictions. And I use the word addiction very, very loosely because, again, one drink a night is not a classic problem. But I realized that it was a coping strategy that really was not what I needed at the time.
27-year-old Kelly Mills works in technology. She says before the pandemic, she was a social drinker who constantly questioned her relationship with alcohol, often abstaining for long periods of time.
In 2020, I did dry January, and then sometime after Easter during quarantine, I picked up drinking again. It was definitely out of boredom and monotony. I quickly became aware that I don't actually need this in my life.
Dr. Sarah Gundell is a clinical psychologist.
As COVID has wound on and everything kind of has been turned on its head, there's also been this sort of surprising effect that people have been able to do a bit more introspection, a little more self-reflection. You know, is alcohol a reflexive thing that they want to turn to when they're stressed, or are there other ways?
Lily says she found other ways to stop her so-called addiction and cope with stress that allowed her to keep her focus and avoid the health risks associated with alcohol. She began drinking tea to relax, and a friend turned her on to meditation.
It sounds cheesy, but what we found is we got a lot of the same feeling of feeling revitalized, feeling like an escape. But afterwards, we didn't have the fatigue. We didn't have the hangover.
Kelly says she realized she wasn't missing out on anything by not drinking, and that giving up alcohol allows her to be more in tune with her own emotions. And she discovered a fun way to cope with quarantine.
There's this huge market cropping up right now for alcohol-free options. You'd be surprised how much just the act of holding onto a drink and sipping it actually does comfort you, even though there's no alcohol in it.
Both Kelly and Lily believe avoiding alcohol in a pandemic has little downside and immeasurable benefits.
Any time without alcohol is a really good thing overall.
Cutting down on things that are negative for our bodies is such a form of self-love.
If you think you might be experiencing a problem with alcohol, or you just want to avoid one, aside from individual therapy, Dr. Gundell recommends organizations like Moderation Management and LifeRing, but also adds there are many groups out there ready to help.